Well, I will show you how I sharpen a scraper. Now, of all the different ways that tools have to be sharpened, the scraper must have the most. I mean, if everything else has 1,001 ways, the scraper must have 10,001 ways. And proof's in the pudding. Does it work? That's the whole thing. All these methods are fine. Mine is the kind of non-gizmo method, because I just think that you learn how to do the skills with your hand and you can do it, and you don't need some sort of jig to be able to hold you. And then those skills are transferable. Your hands learn how to sharpen. They just learn how to hold something, and you don't need to buy anything or make anything. But with that said, you can if you want. And the one thing that does help is if you wanted to take like a piece of hard maple and saw a kerf right up the middle of it and slide the scraper into that kerf, and then that holds it square, because getting the prepping of it square is real important. This is an old scraper. I think I bought this when I first started woodworking in about 1980, 81. Sandvik used to make them. So I still have it. I've used it for that many years. I use it all the time and sharpen it. Another great thing about a scraper, it costs $5 and it's still a great tool. How much sandpaper have I gone through since then? And I don't even use a lot of sandpaper. Probably $1,000 worth of sandpaper. So I'm going to joint it first across the file, and then I'm going to run it across the stones, and then I'll turn the burr. And it's a little burnisher that I found in a junk store up in Maine, 1984. So that's what I'll use. Now, from turning the burr, you can sharpen it just by returning the burr 3, 4, maybe 5 times before you really can't do it anymore or get a good edge on it. And I'm told by doing that you harden the metal a little bit, and that must be true, because when I always take it back to the stone to the file for the first time, it will kind of skip a little bit across that file, like I'm trying to file something that's harder, and then after a couple of strokes it gets down to where it's cutting softer metal. So the file that I'm using is a 10-inch mill file. It just says mill smooth on it. So I don't know the names of files, but that's what that one is. Now I'm going to hold it as vertical as I can, as perpendicular to the file as I can. And get it to where it's just cutting all down its length. Now at this point, if you want to look at it with your hand lens, if you're not, if you're kind of a neophyte at this, you might want to look at it at this hand lens and see that those file marks are hitting all the way down the edge. Now one thing I forgot to say, and it's because this scraper is so old, if you've got a new scraper, you'll need to prep the sides. So it's just like flattening the back of a hand plane. You'll need to smooth these sides down by working it up through your stones. So starting at say an 800 grit water stoning, working up to an 8,000 grit, and getting it nice and slick and smooth there. So once you get that, then you can go to the file and joint it. So we've got it jointed, and now we're going to remove these file marks. So it's just like any sharpening, you're getting finer and finer and removing the coarse marks as you go. I've got a couple of diamond stones that I don't use very often. They were given to me, and I mainly use them to sharpen a scraper, because the scraper can dig into a water stone, although I use a water stone a lot if I have to. You just got to move it all over the place. But I'm going to use these diamond stones right now. So just turning it and keeping it vertical. Now, once again, a good idea, if you're just learning how to do this, is to look at it with your lens and have you taken off all the file marks. because that's important before you move on to the finer stone. So just pick it up and just look at it right like that. And you'll see that I have not taken off all the fire marks. So I'll go back to the stone. Okay. So now, look at it. That looks much better. Okay. Now we'll go to this 1200 grit stone. Now what we've got is what's called a false burr on the side, put on by the file in this stone. But we're going to deal with that in a few minutes. Okay, turn it on its side, take off that false burr. Okay, I think it's prepped and I'm ready to turn the burr. Now, if you're having trouble sharpening your scraper, it's hard to figure out if it's the prep or if it's turning the burr. Well, here's a good way of discerning which one it is. A properly prepped scraper without a burr turned on it will pull up a nice shaving. If it can't pull up a shaving, then you need to go back to the square one, back to your file and join it and come all the way through it. So I'm going to pull out a board here and we'll see if we can get a nice shaving off of it. Okay, well I've got a nice piece of walnut here, because walnut scrapes pretty good, and we'll see if it can pull up a shaving. Now, it's going to be pretty vertical, but that's what you want. So there we go. We got a nice shaving. Let's see if the other side can get one. Okay, the other side. Now there we go. Got one on the other side too. I was about to say that one side will not pull up as good a shaving as the other side, but it did. But if that's the case, it means that you've probably angled it just a little bit. And one side's cut and the other side's not. So now we're going to turn the burr. And I do that on my bandsaw table. It's just the right height, so we'll go there. So before I turn the burr, I pull out a little bit of metal. So I'm going to set this scraper about 1 inch back from the edge. Then I'm going to reference the burnisher off the edge of the table there. And I'm just going to take a couple of light strokes like that. Like that. Now I'm push it over the edge of the table and I'm going to turn the burr. And I'm really going to try to turn it about as upright as I can. So I don't know what the angle is. I mean, you read 5 degrees. Certainly you don't want to go beyond 5 degrees. Okay, let's go over to the walnut and see if it works. So let's see what kind of shaving it can pull up now. So I want it as up straight as I can, as it will cut. So there goes a nice peeling right there. Let's try the other one. And there's one for the other one too. So now if it wasn't cutting good, if I turned the burr too much, this point, from what Phil O says and Dan Thea, they use that point to adjust that burr. I've never done that before, but maybe I'll give it a try one day. And stick it right up underneath that thing and pull it right like that. I think that's a pretty cool idea. That's awful fine adjustment there. Okay, that's a scraper.